everyone, welcome back to Old World Legends, where we focus on growing the community. I'm your host, Mike, and with me as always is Evan.
Chracian Warhost is pretty cool. I'm a huge Chrace guy. We're going to be talking about that today.
That's right. So we actually went ahead, we focused a whole bunch on the beginning video series. We were taking you through the core rule books, and then we went through some of the Arcane Journals, starting at Cathay and such, but now we're going back. Now that we finished going through the core rule books and hitting up the other Arcane Journals that we haven't done yet, I promise you we will get to all the Legends factions as well. We love them very dearly. I own most of the Legend factions as army list. But right now we want to dive into this. And as always, please do, like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy our video content, please do consider supporting us on Patreon. So Evan, let's dive in, sir.
Yeah, so the first page of the rules in the High Elves Arcane Journal is discussing about the High Elf Realm's Chracian Warhost, which I've been playing almost every single round, especially because I've repainted some of my old High Elves and did some 3D printed shields to make my whole army Chrace themed, or Chrace, depending on how anal you want to be about how it's pronounced.
Base, Voss, whatever, doesn't matter. This is the White Lion guys, right? That's what this faction is.
Indeed, yes. So we've got a bunch of nice, handsome lumberjacks, but don't worry, they're still toughness 3. So as far as the army
it's a
composition
really cool
goes,
list, though. It's really cool.
It is cool. I will say that both of the High Elf ones are very limited in terms of what you can take. Thank God Shadow Warriors are in here, or else this list would be like 3 unit types. So we'll talk about that. But this one, you get to have the Prince and the Archmage. So that's a big deal. The other Army of Infamy doesn't do that. Still 0 to 1 per 1,000 points is very, very good. I mean, almost every single competitive list takes, 2 per 2,000 points of either that or both of them. Our Prince.
Well, Evan, to give people context to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So we have the Grand Army for the High Elves, and then the Arcane Journal came out, and there were 2 Armies of Infamy in it, right? The Chracian Warhost, and which one was the other one?
The God, I kind of forget. It's the one with Love and Seaguard. It's the Seaguard Garrison. There you go.
Seaguard Garrison. Okay, so those are the 2. So you kind of have the White Lion themed one, right? With more all about the White Lions and making those interesting and cool and an army themed around that. And then you have the other one about those High Elves that are all about the Seaguard, right? In terms of like the spears and the bows and the sky cutters and stuff like that. So those are kind of the 2 themes. So the first one we're diving into is the White Lion faction, the Chracian Warhost, and it's a very interesting Army of Infamy. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in it.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, you do get to have your access to those kind of like Lord level characters, but you also get one of my favorite things in all of the Army of Infamy and the Arcane Journals is you get to have these like middle characters that have 75 points of magic items usually. Sometimes they have 3 wounds. Oftentimes if they're a wizard, they can become a level 3. That's first of all the Chracian Chieftain, who is a 3 wound character, but he's not a lord, so that's kind of cool. And the Storm Weaver, who has not a melee character, but they do get to be a level 3 wizard, and you can have 0 to 1 of either of them per 1,000 points as well. So having these like backup characters is also quite neat. I often try to fit one of those into the list.
Yeah, love 3 wounds. I always am so bloody nervous on 2 wound characters.
Oh, yeah.
Like a stiff breeze or an unlucky armor save versus a great weapon, and my 2 wound character goes down. So love characters that have 3 wounds and not having to pay for the Lord level points. If you can, there's not a lot of them honestly in the game. It's most of the game is 2 wounds or or Lord level points cost at 4 wounds. Not as many mid-tier 3 wound characters.
Yeah, there's about like 5 or 6 that I can think of. And you also have access to the nobles, so no low level wizards, no regular mage. You can take the Storm Reaver as a low level wizard, but that is kind of interesting. Although I don't think most people miss that. I do think, however, that like me personally, I've seen so many rules confusions and issues around when do champions count as characters, when and then these low level characters that are like 150 points but they have 2 wounds. I just kind of really wonder if you have like a character on foot and he's got 2 wounds, maybe that should just be the unit champion. Like they should just like merge those 2 concepts to be the same thing. Like you could have a unit of spearmen and they could buy, for 20 points, they can make a guy have 2 wounds and he has 50 points of items. And that's your hero level character, and they're locked to that unit. It'd be kind of cool. Mike, you often bring up every time I try to streamline something, you're like, no, that'll take all the fun out of it.
Well, not necessarily take all the fun out of it. I do agree with your statement that in this edition, there is definitely confusion between what is a champion's role and what is a character's role, and where does the line the line blurs between those two, and wait, which rules apply to the champion and not the character, but not the champion. And I do agree that has caused a lot of confusion and a problem still, even from veteran players, right? It's because there's a lot of overlap, but there's not a difference. So I think having a clearer delineation between a champion versus a character versus calling a champion that's also a character but not really a character, that's super confusing.
Very
I
confusing.
wish they had very clear character rules on the left, champion rules on the right, and they didn't mix and match the words, saying it's sort of kind of. So I do agree with that sentiment. That is not clear. I hope they can clean that up in addition too, because in previous editions it was much clearer the divide between them, but it's less clear in this edition. And the biggest thing is because again, like your champion can take points, right, or magic items often, but it depends on the champion, right? That's not necessarily true for all champions. And then also they could do challenges, but their challenges aren't the same as a hero because they move differently within the fighting rank versus not. So it's really confusing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to say that I kind of like the idea of characters and champions kind of merging into the same thing. In this case of, instead of having like a high elf noble who for 25 points can turn himself into a pseudo Phoenix Guard, why not the Phoenix Guard unit able to buy a character like champion who's got 2 wounds, got a little better profile, right? And kind of like merge those two things together.
In previous editions, there was a clear delineation between a champion versus a hero versus a lord.
Yes.
And those were 3 distinct tiers of types of characters. They've kind of clumped them into one category in this edition, characters, and they made it, in my opinion, that did not make the game better. They actually created more confusion in my opinion.
Well, and then temporarily there we had a lot of characters that were like mercenaries, like Doomseekers, and then we had, or you had champions who are pseudo characters like a Dragon Ogre Shartak with 25 points of magic items, and he has a 3+ armor save, like and 4 wounds, and suddenly he's kind of like a character, right?
It's confusing.
Getting a little off topic, but the Chracian Warhost, I mean, the core of your army is 33% with both of the Army of Infamy. That's a lot, but when you have access to very expensive troops, don't worry, you'll fill it up nice and quick. I think the main thing, though, is that all of the core choices are infantry. So in this list and in the other one, these are very infantry-focused armies. And for a while, that was a big punishment. I do think that we have had a massive swing, and that lately, if anything, I don't see a lot of cavalry running around because cavalry just loses to a 2-rank kind of heavy infantry unit a lot of the time now. So I think if anything, we're seeing a lot more infantry, even if potentially it's mostly just like missile units or units that bunker a bunch of wizards who do the actual damage, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's multiple reasons for that, to your point. I think it's infantry got a significant buff in 151, cavalry did not. Also, cavalry are more expensive and they're very vulnerable, more vulnerable to things like Vile Tide because they have less wounds than the infantry blocks. So I think that definitely has been a thing. And also, again, it's still a very hero monster hero edition heavy, right? And cavalry can't stand against monster.
Whereas the infantry kind of can. The changes to the combat resolution scores mean that
makes a big difference.
So yesterday we had a tournament. I was playing Beastman Wild Herd against my second opponent was another Wild Herd player, so we had kind of like a mirror match. But I had a bunch of Primal Herd. I think there were like 30 of these guys, and they were taking on a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. And in some rounds of combat, the Shaggoth like whiffed his attacks, and I won combat by 3, and he was double outnumbered because I had 30 guys, and he had to roll a leadership 6 or less, or he would break and flee, and he passed it the first couple times. And other times he got several stomps in, and suddenly I was on the back foot, and I was like, crap, I better pass my test or I'm screwed. And so a big block of troops, like a 200 point scoring unit, can basically kind of solo a non-character monster a lot of the time now, which is a very good place for the game to be because both units have a place. Whereas the cavalry, they have first charge, and if they don't break a unit like Gore Herd or something that have Warband and a large number of models, they're just going to lose eventually. And I did see that in the tournament before that.
Well, I've got to be honest too. I think everybody from the first 2 years were so used to, I have a big brick of cavalry, I'm going to charge directly headfirst into everything as the hammer unit to break the opponent. And they realized now that's not nearly as effective as it used to be. A lot of people forgot, hey, there's a thing called flanking, and there's 6 turns to this game. and cavalry are still exceptionally good at that. But again, it is people have to adapt to different tactics and strategies, and I think that shift hasn't proliferated as much amongst the community yet. I believe eventually people are going to figure it out that cavalry are so fast; they're actually really, really good flankers.
So man, all this is to say that while you don't see Illyrian Reavers and Silverhelms in this list, I kind of think that both of them suck and are terrible. I mean, I know that a lot of people out there refuse to take any elf infantry and core, and they have 6 Silverhelms with a Ring of Fury, and another 6 Silverhelms with a Ring of Fury, and then 5 Illyrian Reavers, and I'm like, the only thing you're doing with them all game is going, I could charge you, but I'm probably just going to flee when you charge me, because I don't have counter charge, so I guess this unit's just going to run around in circles and try not to die. Whereas at least the infantry can stand there and do something. I know that the spearmen are very expensive, but they can do just as good as that wild herd unit at, I guess I might have a bunch of combat res and beat you eventually. That's halfway decent. The archers as well. I mean, I was playing against a Nuln gunline yesterday, and I can't tell you the number of times where he was trying to shoot me with repeater handguns or handgunners or a volley gun. And every single time, my units were 13 inches away from him, so he was out of short range. So I harp on this quite a lot. The difference between a longbow having 30-inch range and a warbow having 24 is you almost every single time have another +1 to hit compared to the people who don't, because
it's a big difference.
You're never in short range when your short range is 12. It just doesn't happen. And so
you're being charged. That, if the opponent's 12 inches away, you're probably being charged.
Yeah. So that's why I think that the Elven Archers have a place in the Chracian Warhost. They're also a lot cheaper than Woodsmen, because, by the way, that's the comparison is, do you spend 15 points per model to have a guy who has an axe, can skirmish, and has a strength 4 warbow, or do you spend 10 points a model for a guy who has a longbow with that as armor being 1? And I think that both of those, as far as shooting goes, are very valid. I had 10 Ungor with Bliss Skill 3 take out a bunch of repeater handgun guys yesterday, Outriders. So
nice.
I think all of those can be useful. People who say spearmen suck, I mean, they're just expensive. They would be very, very useful if they were a lot cheaper, but that's the only problem is they're expensive. And then we have also 0 to 1 white lines per 1,000 points as a core choice. I think white lines, now that they just gave them all Furious Charge for free, which, by the way, makes the Lion Guard unit that they have in Rare, for 6 points, you have Weapon Skill 6. Like, 6 points more per model, you're not core and you have Weapon Skill 6. So, okay, weird. But now that regular white lions have Furious Charge, they're one of the best elf infantry units. I mean, Hargoneth Executioners don't have that. Witch Elves have a massive problem now they have Frenzy that only works when they charge, but then they don't have 2 ranks to fight, so Witch Elves got a lot worse. Sword Masters only having 1 rank when you charge. I mean, it's pretty crippling to only have 1 rank when you charge. I've had it a couple times yesterday. I had Bestigor. I would charge in there, and only with 1 rank of them fighting, they don't do very much. And then suddenly when the enemy gives ground and I get 2 ranks to swing with them, it's like, wow, it really helps add in that those extra attacks when you're fighting someone like who has slug skin, so now I'm hitting on 5+. Just having double the number of attacks is very, very important. So white lions just give you either 2 ranks are going to swing because you got charged, or 2 attacks each because you get to charge, and both of those are very good.
Yeah, but the Black Orcs having Furious Charge, I love it. It makes a huge difference, and I actually want to charge, right? So, hey, I get 2 ranks if you charge me, but if I charge you, cool, I get Furious Charge, and Black Orcs have the benefit of Choppas, but Furious Charge is fantastic.
Yeah. So then you can have up to 50% of your army spent on special units, including White Lions that you already have in core, and Lion Chariots, but that's cool. I mean, I really like Lion Chariots. Other than not being toughness 5, they are very, very good. They're very good at screening. They're really good at rallying. So if you just want to flee and then charge something else, I used my Tuskor chariots yesterday, which are very similar, except they're cheaper, to do things like I'm going to guard my baggage train so that when the enemy ambushers show up, if they show up near the baggage train, close enough to move in and burn it, I'll be able to charge in with the chariot, do a bunch of impact hits, and murder this unit that's trying to kill my baggage train. That's a great thing that chariots can do. They can kind of screen out your rear lines, or they can, this is your only source of first charge in this list. So if you're fighting a bunch of warband troops, bringing a chariot to try to take their rank bonus away and then murder a bunch with the axes is pretty useful. And each lion has the 2 attacks as well, so the things pulling it can actually do a little bit more than usual. You can also bring the unit of the war lions, which are I think we would see a lot more of that if they had 2 wounds like Sabertoughs do, but they have 1 wound, which makes them just like, man, you could shoot at them with literally anything and they'll just go down because they're just 1 wound with no armor for like 17 points. However, they do have a really small unit size. So like you could take like units of 2 of these things. And in elves, you are very you have a really hard time finding chaff units. There is no 10-man squad of goblins in skirmish for 30 points. You don't get to do that. So if you're using a chaff unit, I mean, a Great Eagle is twice as much as the War Lion squad, and it only has 1 more wound. So I think they're both equally valid. Then we have, in rare, we have the Lion Guard, which basically have no reason to exist anymore. We'll go and talk about that. And that's another problem with these FAQs where they try to balance something in the core rules. They kind of forget that now, I mean, what's the point of Lion Guard? It used to be that they had Fear's Charge and regular White Lions didn't, and now White Lions do. So they're kind of just the same thing. And then we have Shadow Warriors. I mean, I don't know how many times you heard me harp on how cool Shadow Warriors are, Mike. I love them, especially for my bunker for my my wizard. They're amazing.
Yep, and they look cool too. I like the models a whole bunch. They're super cool models, like elf ninjas. They're super cool.
Elf ninjas. Yeah, they're kind of like special forces, you know, like Navy SEALs. And
they're really cool.
You know, as much as a bow can do, they could do some damage with their bows. I know the Sisters of Avalorn are very much the favorite of literally every other person on Earth, but they can't flee from charges. So you can sit at the back of the board all game, and then just you get charged by something and they die. If you're not really good with positioning, Sisters of Avalorn are a problem. Then we have the Great Eagles, so thank God you still have something like that can help you out, and you have bolt throwers, which are just too expensive to do anything. So this is a very one-note army, but that's not a problem because I think the notes that it hits on are very useful and interesting. I usually use a mix of, I've got my White Lion troops, I've got archers, and I have screening Shadow Warriors, which have chariot runners so that my chariots can charge through them if I need to. Not having that can be a big problem. In fact, if the Shadow Warriors only let my White Lions charge through them, that would actually be a real critical benefit, but unfortunately that's not something they do. Yeah, and then for your battle standard bearer, you can make the Chieftain your battle standard bearer. So if you don't take 2 dragons, I think that having the Chieftain be your BSB is very nice because then you can have a BSB in your unit of infantry and he gets to have 3 wounds. So unlike a normal BSB who's like, I don't know, 2 wounds and just stiff breeze is gonna fall over, or a single Ogre Blade. The thing I hate about the 2 wound character is that you get hit with a couple attacks by the Ogre Blade guy, a single one goes through and he rolls a 2 or 3 on the number of wounds and you just die instantly to a single unlucky hit, right? So yeah, but this guy can also ride on a chariot, so you can get up to like 6 wounds, which gives you more durability as well. I have also done that with the Chracian Chieftain on the chariot. He's not just the same as the Noble on the chariot because the Chieftain has more attacks on the charge. So at the very least, the higher weapon skill guy kind of has more of those attacks. Yeah, and then I mean, I don't know why they list magic items because it's of course they get high elf. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why that's listed there, but yeah, and they also have the
because honestly, remember, because like, you know, like, hey, if I'm the Dragon Ogre in this army versus that army, what items do I get?
Right.
It's important for them to list out the things that seem obvious so that we don't question them. So let's dive into the special rules for the list, though. It comes with some, right?
Yeah, there's there's very few. The first one is that the characters can only take these specific elven honors, so it's limited. So instead of the like 6 or 7 that the Grand Army gets, you can have Shadow Stalker, which is one of my favorites, especially for the wizard. It gives you a bow for free, so now your wizard has a bow. Cool, you get another bow shot. He gets Feign Flight. He gets to have Fire and Flee and Evasive and Scout. So an evasive wizard is pretty nuts because if you ever get caught out by like someone being able to try to Ruby Ring or Magic Missile your wizard, being able to say, "Oh, I'm just going to use evasive," and then you just don't get hit at all is freaking brilliant. And it's really useful on wizards. And he gets to Scout. So classic, your enemy gets the first turn, they start out of Dispel range, they cast all of their buffs, like for example Steed of Shadows, and then fly all over the place wherever they want to. Not if you have a scouting wizard. You can start in Dispel range and give them, you know, some kind of a way to fight back against that. Then we have the Chracian Hunter. That's pretty obvious. The only thing is that if you take Chracian Hunter, you can't be on any kind of mount other than the Lion Chariot. So If you can't make your general the Chracian hunter and ride a dragon, which is a little bit of a bummer because I really think that if you could just have the lion cloak and the axe, but like not be completely limited in terms of the mount choice, that'd be kind of nice for the general of this army. Or obviously Pure of Heart, which is the thing people take all the time, in particular because it lets you use the leadership even if they have some kind of a spell that turns off Inspiring Presence. So all of those are very good, and a lot of armies don't have any way to customize their characters, so you still have some of the great ones. The next special rule is Hidden Trails, which you can upgrade Elven Spearmen or Archers to have move through cover for 1 point per model. In addition, not the elves, not the archers and the spearmen, but if a different unit with the ambusher rule is held in reserve, once per game you can give them a +or -1 to come in. I forget this even exists because A, which units ambush? Like 2 of them. And B, especially with elves, if you're kind of outnumbered, I think a lot of the time you don't really want to ambush because you don't have any cheap ambushers. The best ambushers in the game are ambush units that are under 100 points, where you can, basically just throw them in late game, send them after the baggage train, and if they die, it's not that big of a deal. The elves don't have that many units that are that cheap, so I don't usually use that. The next rule, Warriors of Chrace, is that the elven spearmen or archers again can get the Lion Cloak special rule for 10 points per unit, which is not very many points, and is, for people who don't know, the Lion Cloak rule gives you +1 to your armor save versus non-magical shooting. If you had, 20 archers and they bought light armor too, because I don't know why you would do, one without the other, then that's a great rule because it's only 10 points per unit. In particular, it's great on the spearmen because if you do bring spearmen, you probably brought 18 to 20 something of these guys, and 10 points to just give them a 3+ armor save, or sorry, 4+ armor save versus shooting. Quite good, especially because I think that a lot of armies right now have really migrated around to I'm just going to shoot you and stand in the back, and that's been happening a lot. And I think that Lion Cloak is a great rule to help with that. Mm-hmm. Now, the Lion Cloaks are like having a shield, except it doesn't work versus magic missiles. So the worst part about White Lions is that when they get attacked by magic missiles, if they just had a shield, they'd be better off, but they don't, which is kind of funny because dwarves are like, we actually know how to use great weapons and shields at the same time.
Well, that's a dwarf thing. This is an elf thing.
There's a lot of factions that are like, I have a 2-handed weapon. I don't know how to carry a shield. I can't do that. Warriors of the Wilderness. So they changed this in the FAQ in case you don't know. You get to put down a forest that's 9 inches wide anywhere that's not at the center of the battlefield, exactly in the same way as Wood Elves when you play the Chracian Warhost. This used to be way cooler because it used to be in the what you're seeing in front of you, a difficult terrain, but not a forest. Difficult terrain meaning I can see through it, where I would really enjoy putting this, where my open order white lions could deploy in it, or my archers could stand behind it and shoot past this. In fact, I already started building a diorama for this where I was going to have a bunch of chopped down trees and a little logging camp with tents around it. But then the FAQ said, no, it's a forest. So that's sad, because now it's just like literally I'll just make the same 9-inch circle of plastic for my Wood Elves and the Chracian Warhost. It's the same thing now. I don't get that. I'm confused. Placing your own terrain, though, can be a massive advantage. In fact, when, obviously Beastmen do this with the Hearthstone. When you place it in the right spot, it wins you the game. When you place it in the wrong spot, it screws you over. So that's quite fun. But at the very least, you've got white lions who have moved through cover. You can buy it on your archers if you want, and you have this difficult terrain piece, and they're open order as well. So the white lions don't lose their rank bonus when they're standing in it, unlike all the warband troops you might be fighting. If you can stick this somewhere really important to the battle and use it to your advantage, it can be swinging the game in your favor. It basically, if you've got like a big unit of night goblins, and they've got a bunch of fanatics, this stops fanatics from hurting you. And if the night goblins charge into it to try to attack you, they have no warband for their rank bonus. So, if you use this as a massive shield, I think this is great. Mm-hmm. That's probably the best special rule they have, which is also kind of the only one that... most people don't take the Spearmen or the Archers. So 2 of these they don't use, because they're not using those 2 things, right?
Yep.
Okay. The Seaguard Garrison is the other army of Infamy. The army composition is similar in the sense that it's basically all infantry. We do have Reavers in rare. I literally forgot that was there. That's interesting. And Skycutters. But otherwise, you kind of just have a lot of things that fly, and then 33% of your army is going to be Sea Guard and Ship's Company, which are basically just spearmen and archers, and Shadow Warriors. So you have a lot of infantry on foot. Now, Mike, have you ever seen a Sea Guard army at any of our events?
Well, I've seen Sea God armies in Warhammer 8th edition. In terms of this edition, no, not yet.
Okay. So I might have slightly skipped over with the Chracian Warhost. In core, you have Woodsman, Strength 4 base with a great weapon, essentially. So Strength 6 attacks. White Lions, Strength 4 base with a great weapon, essentially. Strength 6 attacks. Your whole
It's
army
hard.
can be Strength 6 if you want to, right?
Mhm.
The Sea Guard Garrison is the complete opposite. 33% of your army has to be Sea Guard who have spears and bows, so Strength 3. Ship's Company who
Yep.
have spears and bows, Strength 3. And Shadow Warriors who have
Yep.
bows at Strength 3. So all of your core Strength 3. In special, you have the bolt throwers that don't do anything, the eagles that are strength 4, so whatever, and then skycutters that they have strength 4 spears on the charge, so like that's not that much strength, especially when you're fighting. Warriors of Chaos. If the one of the new
But you
army
don't take
infamy,
this. You don't take the Sky Cutter for the crew. You take it for you're a flying chariot.
Yes.
That's why you take the Sky Cutter.
Yes, and well, it does have a little harpoon on it, which is better than the bolt thrower for almost less points, and it survives better.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
That is also an option. Obviously, I think Skycutters should be part of this list because they're kind of part of the whole Lothern theme. That's perfectly fine. What I'm saying is, where's the Strength 5 and 6 attacks? This doesn't have it. None of the core has it. And then in rare, we've got Reavers, Strength 3 bows, Strength 4 spears. Okay. And then you can have a Phoenix. The Frostheart Phoenix is Strength 6 with its 4 attacks. That's fine.
Yeah,
And a
you can take
Merwyrm.
2 of those.
Yeah. So other than the monsters, this list doesn't have anything that's strength 5 or 6 at all. The whole core is strength 3 and 4. So why I'm pointing that out is because in a lot of your matchups, you play against Beastmen, you play against the new Wolves of the Sea, where every single model can make themselves toughness 5 if they want to.
Potentially, yeah.
Your whole army might absolutely do no damage. Because against toughness 5, like Marauders, you will have to be winning on 6s with all of your attacks, and there is no spells in any of the lores that High Elves have access to raise your own strength.
Yeah, but again, to be fair, the Marauder toughness 5 is a 1-turn thing. Otherwise, they're toughness 4.
So the Berserkers can be toughness 5 all game.
Berserker, but then they're also having to take the Wolves of the Sea list specifically, so that will restrict their army list. So yes, but you could also, to be fair, just take a monster mash list.
Yes,
which is not. You could do that with Beastmen. You could do that with multiple armies. You could take a monster heavy list. So yes, the point is this edition is brimming with lists that have often toughness 5 and toughness 6 things all over the place, and that is something in any general army list you need to be able to. How are you going to take down toughness 5, toughness 6 things? This list doesn't have a lot of answers to that.
Right, and if a spell existed in this game called Occam's Mind Razor, which for people who have post 8th edition PTSD, what that did was it made your units' attacks the strength equal to their leadership value. And back then, if you were strength 8, that meant you would have AP 5. So
yeah, well, to your point, the other way to solve it is having buffs that could increase the strength, which this army doesn't have access to, or debuffs such as Itchy Nuisance that can actually lower the toughness of the opponent, but also something this army list doesn't have access to.
I mean, you can take a Stormweaver who then now has to buy Lore Familiar so that they can get this, and take Dark Magic and try to cast Word of Pain, which is a 10+ to go off spell.
That's a tough spell.
So
it's
you have
really,
to roll
really
an
good
8
spell
to get it off.
Yeah.
So, and there's no other way to get +1 to cast in this army. And Stormweavers don't have the thing that all other High Elves wizards have, which is kind of nonsense that they have this. They have reroll to cast once a turn. Stormweavers don't have that. So, and what else do we not have? So in this army, we do not have a prince, so no Star Dragon guy. We do not have an Archmage, so no level 4 wizard. Now that used to be I can't take you because you don't have a level 4 wizard. Obviously, with the changes to the casting, a level 3 wizard is basically the same thing now, and the Stormweaver is a level 3. You do have Sea Guard Garrison commanders who are a weird mix of that hybrid character where they actually don't have 3 wounds, but they do have the 75 points of magic items. So that's kind of interesting. And they are kind of expensive. So a lot of people just stick with the nobles because the Sea Guard commander is a lot of points and doesn't really offer that much as an advantage. I think the main thing he gets is evasive, which is kind of funny. So you can be an evasive griffin flying dude with this army, or he can ambush. You can have ambushing griffins. This, if you want to have your entire army fly, except a couple archers, this is the army for you, because you can have all of your characters can be flying on stuff. You can have dragon mages, which are the level 1s and 2s, but hey, at least they bring the, you can bring several of those guys on the sun dragons. And then in special, you can have all the sky cutters or eagles; those all fly. And in rare, you can have phoenixes and that stuff. So you can have a massive air force with this army, but none of it is the star dragon though. Whereas you can just have the air force in your grand army list too, right? Like you can just put Leather and Seaguard in core, and then take all this stuff anyway. The only thing that's special is the Seaguard commander, I guess. He's different.
Well, they got any special rules? Let's scroll down.
Okay, so the special rules. So the first one is a limitation. So you don't get to have any honors except Shadowstalker, Pure of Heart, or Seaguard. So that's the first rule.
Okay.
The second rule, after deployment, but before placing scouts or moving units with Vanguard, you can remove a single deployed unit and put it back somewhere else in your deployment zone. We play with this kind of rule in some of our missions sometimes. It's a lot of fun to get to do this. In general, the only thing you would ever do with this is your 450-point Lothern Seaguard unit. You're going to pick it up and put it somewhere else. But your 450-point Lothern Seaguard unit is this big. My hands don't even fit on the screen. Is this big. So if it's going to be picked up and moved somewhere, you're going to have a giant hole in your deployment zone that big that someone's going to go, oh, so that's where it's going to go after it moves. Now, luckily, maybe people just don't know you can even do this. In fact, I forgot you can do this. So then maybe you'll do it so that people deploy right in front of your Seaguard, you put them somewhere else, and now they're safe, right? You can do that.
Well, that's not a great strategy. I hope my opponent forgets.
I hope my opponent forgets.
Not a great strategy.
The next one is from the Storm Clouds, 0 to 1 Skycutter per 1,000 points, including those taken as character mounts, can have ambush for 10 points. So you can have an ambushing Garrison commander guy, which is kind of interesting, especially because some of the items this army can take are interesting for like trying to shut down magic. They can have a guy who takes an item that everyone nearby him has harder time casting.
Mm-hmm.
Old World Rangers. So Shadow Warriors of unit strength 10 or less in a Seaguard army can have ambushers for free. So this is an upgrade you can buy for 1 point per model. And so they can have that for free. So this army gives you 10 extra points to spend in your list. Great savings. And then we also have Pride of the Fleet. So 0 to 1 Seaguard Seaguard unit per 1,000 points can have drilled special roll for free. So you can have drilled on a unit of spearmen infantry who don't want to charge. So the best time you want to use drilled for is like, I'm going to declare a charge. I'm going to use it to like get wider, get more attacks. But your infantry with spears, so you're getting less attacks.
Yeah, I would say,
That's kind of weird.
The Seaguard list is, everyone got so excited when they were announced this as one of the armies of infamy. And in particular, because everyone loved the models that came with that box that was from 8th edition, right? It's such a good box set. And they did actually a fantastic job. We were just talking about this, taking those old monopose models and remaking the plastic kit for them in the new version. And they're still fantastic models, and they're better than they ever were before.
The Reavers, yeah.
The Reavers. So everyone was pumped that this happened, which is fantastic. But then, unfortunately, you see the GW team really pushing really fun themes. I think the theme is great, in terms of a Seaguard list and what are they doing, and they definitely have the theme and the tone down. But part of the okay, so they want to restrict things you can take, so that's more thematic. But some of the lists they've made have been huge successes, right? More so than others, but I feel that this one was a miss, not a miss on theme and narrative, but a miss on it's going to just get steamrolled on the battlefield. And it just doesn't have enough tools or solutions to list. And it's not about, hey, it needs to be an S-tier army list. Don't need an S-tier army list, but you need at least something that, again, can handle the typical things that are out there. And to be fair, this has happened on multiple Armies of Infamy lists where it is interesting where you were seeing the pattern that you saw in the early version of the 40K lists when they started to have more restrictions on here's a more narrow Space Marine list, therefore these are the things you can take, but you have some buffs. Versus more often in the newer edition of 40K, after several editions of this, they've switched it to actually you could just take the core, there's just a core list, and then you specialize your lists on option A, B, C, or D, and they're all just buffs. There's no downsides. There's only just positives. In the current Warhammer, the Old World Arcane Journals, we're constantly seeing huge lacking of unit choices and negative downsides to a list, which it does focus its theme and narrative, but it also makes it a lot harder to make a competitive list. And I think, or even just a list that can just not get steamrolled. And that makes me really sad because that means most players aren't going to take it. There are still players who are like, I love Seaguard, I love his theme, I love the hobby more than anything else. I just want to put these cool models on the table, and I love those players. But I would argue a large portion of the community still wants to. I'm putting models on the table, and even though I'm probably going to lose most of my games, I still want to have a chance, right?
All right, next up is Corhill Lionmane, who I have previously claimed is one of the best special characters in the game because he has a lot of cool things going for him without being like completely broken, and I enjoy putting him on the table. He's great for the theme and vibe of this list. I think that when you compare him against trying to build a melee, let's just say Chracian Chieftain, for example, as your BSB or something, Corhill is very, very good. So what do we got? So he has weapon skill 7, so he's just as good as a lord, but he is not. He isn't like a prince that takes up one of those slots, so he gets to be taken in addition to a prince. He has strength 4, toughness 3, just like all other elves. He has 3 wounds, initiative 6, and you'll see that that's going to be the initiative he strikes with his axe at, because kind of instead of having strikes first and then his axe having strike last, you just kind of they just removed both of those rules and just gave him strike in initiative 6. And he has 4 attacks, so very similar to a prince, except he only has leadership 9 instead of 10. And then he has some really good items. Now I think what happens to a lot of special characters is they can have a decent stat line or a decent price and some cool rules, but they're just like missing an item that you would just buy for your regular character. And so since they just don't have it, they're just really terrible. Like for example, the Grand Master of the Knights Panther in the Empire, Harold Gemmenson, doesn't have a shield, and he has full plate armor and barding and a one-handed weapon, but has no shield. And he also doesn't have a ward save, so he's literally a 3+ armor save with no other protection whatsoever character, which is kind of weird. But compare that to Corhill, and you'll see that he's got a lot of good things going for him. So first of all, he actually has a mount option. That's cool. So he can either take a Chieftain's Chariot. Yeah, he can go on foot. Cool. And I've done both, by the way. On the Chariot, he is quite a decent little backup melee unit, especially because he adds his 3 wounds to the Chariot, so you get like a 6 wound guy running around.
Nice.
And in the infantry squads, when he's just joined in there with them, he can do quite a lot of damage at a high initiative step to try to wipe out some of the front rank before the white lines get to swing. Before the enemies takes out some of their white lines, for example. So he has Furious Charge, which
good.
I mean, thank God he has that, because I think a lot of units in the elves, for example, now all the white lines have it. It really sucked if he didn't have it. Mighty Constitution.
So he starts with 4 attacks. So he'd have 5 attacks on the charge. That's a lot of attacks for any character.
Also, look at the. Okay, I didn't say this out loud. He's only 175 points. Like a regular prince with no items at all is what, 135?
Something like that.
So he already has Furious Charge that a prince does not have. Okay, and then he's got the Chial, which is a special axe, and the Pelt of Charandus, and heavy armor. We have Furious Charge, yes, so 5 attacks on the charge. He has Move Through Cover, which you would get if you bought the Chracian Warhost, or the Chracian Honor upgrade for your character, and Stubborn, which you also get if you buy the Chracian Honor upgrade for your prince. Valor of the Ages, which lets you reroll very specific panic tests that you will very often forget even exist. Okay, but the 2 special rules that that are really special. So we've got Mighty Constitution. If he makes a charge move of 3 inches or more, he gets +1 to his strength characteristic. In addition, Corhill is immune to poisoned attack special rule. If he's hit by an attack with this rule, they have to roll to wound as normal, which I guess in the new poison means there's no bonuses. Now, That's very good, especially when he's on a chariot running around. And the chariot only makes him toughness 4, so it's not like, he's really, really tough or anything. But hey, having people, fire a bunch of poison arrows at you and they don't just get to have +2 to wound or anything, that's nice. And that's something that no one else can really get in this army, so that's neat. The +1 strength means that when he charges, he has 5 attacks at strength 7. Like, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Oh, and then
That's a lot.
And then he has Chial, which is his axe. It's a melee weapon in combat. It's strength +2, AP 3, and gives him killing blow.
Yeah, so he's hitting just as hard as a Black Orc War Boss on the charge with a great weapon and the chopper rule. He's hitting just as hard with the same AP.
Except that he also has killing blow for free on that weapon.
And the Black Orc does not.
Oh, and he gets to automatically pass his WOG test, so he gets to reroll the hit on natural 1.
Dude, the number of times I have WOD and failed just makes me so sad. It should just be automatic. Don't make me roll for my WA.
So you heard it here first.
Orc.
You heard it here first, everyone. Corhill Lionmane is the best Orc War Boss in the game. There we go.
Well, no, he still is not going to beat the Orc War Boss. The Orc War Boss is still going to beat him up. But that being said, and he's on the Wyvern, so I don't care about your stupid.
I actually think that Corhill on a chariot charging the Wyvern, I think he kicks the absolute crap out of the Black Orc on the Wyvern. Because guess what? Black Orc on the Wyvern has a regen save, right, Mike?
Mine does, and a board save.
Yes. Well, guess what? Corhill has a regen save.
Cool. I'm very confident my Wyvern Black Orc will beat him up. But that's a different conversation.
Well, you're not counting for my impact hits, bro. Take some impact hits, then tell me how you feel after that.
My toughness 6 Wyvern doesn't care. Moving on.
So we also have Pelted Tremendous gives you +1 to your armor save while you're in combat, and +2 to your armor save against non-magical shooting. So this is kind of like the Lion Cloak rule, where this does create some weird issues of like, well, what armor save does that mean he has when the chariot starts at a 4+, and then do you add this to that? I guess it does, because this is a special rule, not an item, I guess. So, but anyway, it means he gets the 3+ versus shooting.
Well, no, it's an item, right? Isn't it? Like it's it's a magic item that it's not a special rule.
So
magic item.
You can have plenty of fun telling everyone what the hell armor save his chariot has when it's shot at by non-magical attacks, because he's got +2 armor save from this, but then does that only apply to his heavy armor, or does you start with the chariot armor save, or what?
The wearer of the pelt of Shrandis improves the armor value of 1 whilst engaged in combat. The wearer, not the chariot. No, I would say this doesn't help you on the chariot. You're taking the chariot's armor save, or you're taking his armor save. It would be the same thing with my Black Orc War Boss on a dragon or a wyvern or whatever. I'm taking the mount's armor save, or I'm taking his armor save. So no, I do not say those stack.
Okay, interesting. Well, so I guess that means this does nothing for you on the chariot then, because you have a two-handed weapon, you don't have a shield, you have heavy armor, so this gives you a 4+, which the chariot already had. So this
because it doesn't say. It says the wearer. It's not, and it so great. And you're choosing the chariot's armor save or my armor save, right? So if I have my Chaos Lord on a chariot, I don't get to start with my chariot armor save of 4+. Say now I get my full plate on top. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, it's mostly about this one that I'm saying is it increase it by 2 against non-magical
+2.
Well, this one doesn't matter though, Mike, because the chariot already starts at 4+, so it can't go to a 2+. So it would just it doesn't matter. You're just gonna have 3+.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't think this helps you on a chariot.
But it does give you a regen. So most magic or most special characters have like, I'm a cool special character. I do a lot of damage. I have no ward and regen save, right? He actually does, so that's pretty cool. And hey, if you use my favorite lore magic, High Magic, and you use Shield of Sapphire, you can go give him a ward save. So now you can have 3 saves. So that's pretty cool. In fact, vast majority of the time you're like, what the hell would I cast this spell on, right? It's only lasts for my turn. It's just a 5+ ward save. My characters already have this ward save, so this is a good target for that spell. And a lot of times I'm taking High Magic because I'm going to be playing High Elves anyway. So again, for the price that this guy is, because even on the chariot, he's 280. He does a crap load of very high strength damage attacks, and he has leadership 9. And weapon skill 7. Like, I really like this guy quite a lot.
He hits like a truck. He hits very hard.
Ishaya Vest does not. So she also has weapon skill 7, but she has heavy armor and a shield and a spear and a bow. So she has basically like a high elf noble stat line, except for the weapon skill. And then you've got 3 attacks with the spear that are strength 5, AP2 with a spear attack. I mean, that's, when you compare that to what, Corhill does, that's not great. And she's only 5 points less than Corhill, right? The main thing that Ashaya Vest does, because I've seen her on the table once, what she does is she gives the Northern Seaguard unit she joins AP1 on all of their weapons. So I could take White Lions, who have strength 6 AP3, or I could take Ashaya Vest and make a single Seaguard unit have strength 3 AP1 spears. And I mean, it's spears and their bow shots, actually, Mike. So the bows do have AP1 now with Ashaya Vest.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, sure.
That helps a lot.
Okay. She also has her command range is increased by 3 extra inches. I mean, if you're gonna have her on foot as your general, then yeah, 15-inch range is great. I mean, having a foot general is really problematic a lot of the time because you have a 12-inch range command range instead of 18, like a lot of the large target command ranges would be. An 18-inch command range is just like so useful. Like it is so incredibly useful to just have a giant bubble of no, my entire army's safe. Don't worry about it, right? Okay. Now the customizable characters, we've got the Chracian Chieftain. So weapon skill 6 is my least favorite weapon skill in the game. Because it doesn't do anything different than weapon skill 5, except if you're fighting someone who's weapon skill 5. Otherwise, it's just the same. Which I talked about in our last weapon skill related debate.
Yeah, well, I think that for those who didn't watch it, effectively, there are very few things in the game that are weapon skill 5. Almost everything is either weapon skill 3 or 4, or it jumps to weapon skill like 7. So there's just very little 5 and 6. Therefore, it comes into play a lot less. So paying all those additional points for weapon skill 6 versus 5, it is rarely worth the points.
Yeah, the weapon skill 5 comes up a lot in all of the elite elven troops that I bring to the game that most other people don't bring.
Yeah.
So the Chracian Chieftain only has heavy armor, whereas a lot of like the noble and the princes, for example, have the full plate. But what you do get to have is 75 points of magic items, which could be an armor that you purchase, including full plate armor. So you can potentially counteract it by using some of your points on that. This guy also has Furious Charge, so compared to a noble, he'll have 4 attacks when he charges, and he basically just already pays for that Chracian Warhost upgrade. So a noble with the Chracian upgrade would be like 80 something points, 85. So for only like 20 more points, you get an extra wound and Furious Charge. I think that's quite good, especially if you're going to take him on foot. And this guy could be your BSB too.
Cool.
Now, Mike, every other army, they decided to just give you a chariot, like the Lion Chariot, and if you have a character ride one, they ride the Lion Chariot. With High Elves, they decided to give you a Chieftain's Chariot, which has 1 less charioteer and 1 less wound for some of these characters to ride, but not the other ones. I genuinely don't understand. I'm very confused. Why did we do this?
Why would they do that?
So for 15 less points than the regular Lion Chariot, you have 1 less rider and 1 less wound. And this is only
I don't really
used
care
as
about
character
the
mounts.
rider. Well, no, there are White Lion riders, so I do care about it because they build great weapons, don't they?
Well, it's
So
actually a
they
Chracian Greatblade, which is a strength, strength 6 AP3 axe.
So that matters. That's 1 attack there, and the wound, 1 less wound makes a big difference.
So remember, the Chieftain has 1 more wound than the noble, but then his mount that he takes is the 1 less wound mount. So if he's on the Chracian Chariot, right, he's at 6 wounds, and if a noble's on a Chracian Chariot, the noble has 6 wounds as well. So they have the same number of wounds. And then if they're on the charge, the Chieftain gets that 1 extra attack, whereas the noble's chariot would just have an extra charioteer to make that attack. So they end up being almost exactly the same thing, if you know what I mean. So you either have the 1 extra attack from a Chieftain because he has Furious Charge, or you have just a 1 extra charioteer who's doing attacks, right?
You're asking. I don't know why that's choice. They made a choice. I'm not sure why they made that choice.
Yeah. Okay, so the Seaguard Garrison Commander is another very odd choice. So we have a noble stat line in every place except for the Bliss skill, I think, is a bit better. And he has 2 wounds, but he's 90 points, whereas a noble's only 70. So for 20 extra points, like, what do you get, really? You get all of the stuff you would already get by taking like the Sea Guard honor, which is like having naval discipline, for example. You get accomplished archers. That's the main rule. So unless you're mounted on a Sky Cutter, the Sea Guard commander has the evasive and fire and flee rules, and any Sea Guard he joins also get evasive and fire and flee while he's joined to them. What's really funny about this is that the Sea Guard commander can ride on a griffin or an eagle. So if the Sea Guard commander rides a griffin, you have a griffin riding guy who has evasive, which can be incredibly good. And that's basically literally the entire Wood Elf strategy right now is taking 2 Glade Lords on dragons where the Glade Lords are evasive. And having an evasive monster guy where every time you try to shoot at me with anything, I can now fall back and turn around and face a new target, right? Is incredibly good. You can do this, but you're only on a griffin, and you only have the 2 wounds, not like 3, like a Chracian Chieftain, for example. So you're just basically a noble at that point. I don't really. This is a very weird character, and giving Lothern Seaguard evasive. What I mean, you know what? That would be really, really good in a matchup against a bunch of Viletide spam because the Viletide has like 15-inch range, and I guess if you could just evade backwards, you could get out of the range probably. Otherwise, I don't really know when this would ever come up. Because can you evasive against like a catapult?
You have to be targeted to use evasive.
Yeah, but a catapult targets you. It's the cannon that doesn't target you. Cannon targets spot on the ground.
That's true. You are targeting a unit, not a spot. Well, it depends. Are you in the unit, or did it deviate and hit you and you weren't targeted?
No, when you're in the unit and you're getting shot at, yeah.
So if you're in the unit, then technically the unit was targeted. That's correct. But if it deviated and you weren't in the unit, then you weren't targeted.
Yeah. Okay. And all of this is to say that, like, this, unlike a regular noble, he also can't have a great weapon. He can't have, so he has a cavalry spear, right? And he has a war bow. And he can't have full plate armor, like, to just regularly buy. So I just don't get this guy at all. He's kind of weird. The best thing he can do is be on a Sky Cutter and be ambushing, I think. And he does get 75 points of magic items. So, hey, if you take the 20 points that you spent for basically no reason, you can now have extra magic item points. That's what you get, right? Okay, and you have to spend some of them buying yourself full plate armor that you would have gotten to buy normally. The Stormweaver, on the other hand, does do one thing that no one else does, and the Stormweaver can take, be up to level 3 and can take Dark Magic, which no other High Elf Wizard has. However, Dark Magic is like, all of the great spells are really high casting value. I think Word of Pain is amazing, but it's casting value 10. And with the new rules for casting, being level 3 and trying to cast on a 10 is really hard.
I just looked up all the FAQs again about mounts and chariots. I'm more convinced than ever that he doesn't benefit from that. It even says you have to choose the chariot or the rider's armor. You do not get both. You do not get to benefit of the magic armor you're wearing. Does not benefit the chariot you're wearing. And it even says if I have a shield, does it benefit the chariot? Nope. So it says the wearer, him, benefits from the armor value, not his mount, not the chariot. You are picking. Are you taking his armor save, or are you taking the chariot's armor save? So, no, you do not get to stack that on your chariot.
Okay, it is a very fun thing, though, that they do have a special rule. So unlike Corhill, the regular
But it says, it doesn't say you have the special rule, increase the model's profile. It says the wearer.
This guy does, though. It's a different rule, but yeah.
It's a different rule. I'm specifically referring to Corhill's. It says the wearer.
Sure. So yeah, if he's on the chariot, he has a 4+ armor save in combat because he either uses the Chial special rule to give his heavy armor +1, or he uses the chariot's armor, and either way, it's 4+. So great.
Yep.
A nice little non combo there. So the Stormweaver using Dark Magic where it's really hard to cast. Great. I think what you have to do, you have to spend all of these magic item points to take. First, you have to take Lore Familiar, so you actually pick the spell that you need, which is Word of Pain. And then you have to spend the rest of your points, which is 40, right? So you spend 2 of those on Power Scrolls, so you actually try to have a decent chance of getting it off. now you have a character who costs how many points? 85, 60, 75. So 200 points to have some chances at running some dark magic spells. That's very expensive in my opinion. This guy also has mostly just like different mounts. So his only mount option is a unicorn. And if you are doing Seaguard Garrison, you have like almost no other cavalry in your list. So if you run around on a unicorn, you can just get shot at by everything. So I would say you probably have to be on foot, right?
Which is a shame because unicorns are very good mounts for the points cost. Movement 10
Yeah.
is fantastic. But you need to be able to hide.
Well,
It's
you
kind of
can
the
be a
point. So
unicorn. You can be a unicorn riding guy in a Grand Army list where they have cavalry units to hide behind stuff. Because it says
that
right
would help.
here, you can take a Stormweaver in Grand Army list as well.
That's very nice. I
Yeah.
love it when they say, here's an army of infantry. By the way, here are units or things you can now take in addition, add to your expanding the Grand Army roster. I love it when they do that.
I would say I absolutely love it when they do that for the Grand Army so that it becomes much more of like the generalist. But the Army of
Yep.
Infamy itself has to have some special rules to make it like viable and a reason to play it, which
Correct.
this one
And
has
that,
barely any.
and we've said that before, all army infamies are not created equal, not even
Yeah.
close. Some of them are clearly very, very strong competitively, and some of them, unfortunately, are very full of flavor and theme and narrative, and they're just awesome for just a cool looking army, but they're not competitive, and that's just the
Well,
reality of it.
like we're talking about like you can build your house out of balsa wood, kind of competitive.
Yeah,
Like
and you do that because, and you know what? Maybe you just love the army. Maybe you're showing up to your friend's house and you don't care. Maybe you're just hobbying and focusing on a really cool competitive list, or you made an awesome display board. And I love those players. They're the majority of the players. Guess what? You go to an event, typically only one person wins all their games, right? So there's a reason why at our events, like, three quarters of the prizes have nothing to do with winning any games. It's hobby, painting, sportsmanship, best army, right, and other factors. So
right.
winning games is only one layer to why we love Warhammer so much.
So I will say that the Sea Guard do get the ship's company, which is basically just you have a bunch of high elf troops they have evasive fire and flee built in. They start with warbows, but you can trade their warbows for spears and shields, and you can buy light armor for 1 point. So for 10 points, you could have some skirmishing spearmen, which is a very unique and original unit. I don't know why you would need that, but they do provide a relatively cheap little chaff unit that you can because again they can be 5-man squads that are now skirmish, so this can help protect your sea guard blocks from enemy units that you're trying to not get into combat with, or they can go around and attack the baggage trains. But again, they're not 3 points each; they're like 9 points, so it does take a lot of points to get there. Okay,
Yep.
and Sea Guard are in the core rulebook or in the Forces of Fantasy, so they didn't need to reprint or anything there. We don't have like an elite version of the Sea Guard. What we do have is the Lion Guard, which for a long time I was like, man, look how freaking cool these dudes are, right? So we've got heavy infantry. These are white lions who have weapon skill 6 instead of 5. There's that number again.
There's
I'd
that
say
number.
the best thing about this is that when you fight like a beast lord or that kind of character, he's like hits you on 4s, and he's like, wait, what? This is confusing. Why am I not hitting you? Yeah, weapon skill 6 is neat. Now everything else about their stat line is pretty much the same as a white lion. They do have initiative 5, even though they have strikes last, so that doesn't matter that much. And they have leadership 9 instead of 8, so that's kind of neat, right? 18 points though for toughness 3, and they have heavy armor and a Chracian Greatblade, so no shield. Regardless of what the toughness is, okay. At one of the games yesterday, I was facing against a guy who had 4 Vile Tides in a big brick, and every turn his units it took out 11 Bestigor. So there was like the first turn he took out like 12 or so with Vile Tides, and then the second turn he took out 12 more. So by my third turn, I had 8 guys left out of my 30-man squad. So elite infantry there's just certain things that can just snipe the crap out of them, and not having shields certainly makes this even worse.
But to be fair, the Vile Tide spam, while it is
might be
very
the best
powerful
build in the game
in the current meta, we all know that things change, and it is, and yes, they did just nerf Vile Tide from casting value 8 to 9. Honestly, it wasn't enough. But there are multiple ways in which they could go about solving it, right? It's not necessarily that Viletide inherently is bad. The problem is it's very easy to say, cool, I take 4 of it. Anyway, the point is the Viletide spam that is a challenge today will probably in 6 months not be true, and something else will become the big meta threat, right? At one point it was the Chaos Lords on the Dragon. At one point it was Scream lists. At one point it was et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It's always changing and shifting. But yes, right now the Viletide spam is very good at killing elite infantry. That is true. But I bet you this will change at some point.
Yeah. Um, so they have Furious Charge, but now every White Lion has that, right? And
So
veteran,
they're still furious.
yes. But so for 4 points more than a regular White Lion, you have +1 weapon skill, +1 leadership. Potentially 2 of the least valuable stats in the game, especially when your
Not
general
worth
can
4
already give
points
your...
a model.
Yeah, and then you have close order instead of open order, which might actually be a downside depending on how you're playing.
Depending on your tables you're playing on.
Now, every single Lion Guard can issue and accept challenges. That's kind of neat. But what I will say is that in a lot of my games, I'm using Lion Guard and they are fighting against, let's say, a Plague Priest on a... What is the Plague Chariot called? Whatever.
Which
You
are
know, the Skaven Plague Priest on his -1 to hit toughness 5 chariot. Yeah, the Plague Furnace. And great, so I can just issue challenges all day when lose 1 guy per turn, but I'm still not winning combat and I'm still not doing any damage. So issuing accept challenges is just a great way to have a kind of a complicated speed bump, right?
Yeah, they have that with the Blood Knights. They have that with the Grail Knights. They have that with this unit.
Yeah.
I don't see it making the game more fun. I don't see it making those units win any more combats. It's a neat idea. I don't see it worth spending points on, honestly.
Well, there's two things in this game that they love to just hand out for free all over the place. One of them is a unit for 0 to 1 unit per 1,000 points can exchange close order for skirmish. They like to just make massive numbers of your units be able to skirmish if you want to. And the second thing they really like to do is saying every single one of these models can challenge, or you get to challenge in all these cases. Why do we like constantly want the game to turn into like a traffic jam of you're stuck fighting a challenge so everyone else gets to stand there not attacking? I'm not sure why that happens so much.
It's honestly, it's pretty legacy, and again, we've talked about this before. I do think challenges are very unique to Old World. Remember, they used to have this in 40K, right, and such, but they've stripped it all out. It's still an Old World. I'm very glad it's still an Old World, but it could use some more streamlining and modernization to the rule set. I love challenges. I think the system is a bit dated. I think the system can be improved. That will be a different video. That would be an interesting topic for another time on what we'd like to see out of challenges in Edition 2. But yes, in Edition 1, it is a very frustrating speed bump that is very fun and thematic when it's one character versus another, but when it's multiple layers of challenges in a big unit, in my opinion, the fun factor drops on both sides.
So the Chracian Woodsmen start at 12 points. Now, this is the standout unit for most people. I kind of really don't like them. And one of the main reasons is something we literally just talked about. Here's a core unit that's a skirmisher. So we have more of that, where it's just your whole army runs. And I've seen a lot of meta Chracian Warhost lists that are 2 dragons. I don't know what the hell the rest of your army is, but all of the core is just 3 or 4 squads of woodsmen who just run around trying not to ever get into combat. I don't like that at all.
You have the Wood Elf problem. Like, we need units to get into combat. You need engagement with your opponent. Playing keep away is not fun. Period. Not.
Yeah. So Woodsmen are movement 5. They're weapon skill 4 instead of the White Lions, and I think that's a big deal. I really think weapon skill 5 as like your core frontline unit is very, very good. So you do lose that. What you don't lose is you can still be strength 4, and you have a warbow. So you actually have a strength 4 warbow, which is pretty neat. You can still have the heavy armor and the lion cloak if you want to pay points for those things as upgrades. And you can exchange Vanguard for Scout on one of your units, which is amazing. I really like using Scouts. Or Ambush for 1 point per model. So you have a 5-man squad, the Ambush, whatever. That's pretty neat. But every single one of these guys, sorry if we skip that part, they have a Chracian Greatblade. So you have a whole little squad of skirmishers who have the strength 6 AP3 axes. That's quite scary. Okay. The War Lions, I did mention this before. They're a Saber Tusk that has 1 wound instead of 2. So your strength 4, toughness 4, 1 wound, 2 attacks. What is the point of this? Well, you can take 2 of these little things, and they can be one of the cheapest elf units that you can buy, because they're only 36 points for 2. that's pretty much it, right? I mean, you can use them as if they're open order, right? You can put them in marching columns. You can just like run them at things and get them in the way. Move innate with Swift Stride at least gives you the ability to charge from farther away, but you don't really do that much damage. I don't think that these two guys can kill anything stronger than a Goblin War Machine crew, but 36 points. And for those number of points, you can use them to prevent enemies from landing in certain spots. When you're playing against like one of the toughest medalists in the game right now, which is a big giant blob of gore with all these Viletide guys in it, and they usually have Steed of Shadows they can fly around, you have to try to screen out where this big block can land, because it'll land, shoot you, and then use reserve move to fly away again a second time. And if you could just prevent it from landing where you don't want them to land with these kind of units, that can be a critical game-winning move. But that's basically the only thing they're there for. The Merwyrm was really, people were really excited about this, and if it had the greater, if it had the gigantic Chaos Spawn stat line and regen save and price point, it would be all over everyone's tables, and we'd all be tired of it.
Its
it does
stat
not.
line isn't that far off. I mean, it's strength 6, toughness 6, wound. Okay.
It has weapon skill 6, which is
and
nuts.
weapon
That's
skill
great.
6.
Yes.
That's fantastic. 4 attacks. Okay, not the best. Leadership 8 doesn't really matter. And movement 6 is good. Right? And it, but I do agree that a random mover 3d6 is better than flat 6. So its stat line is quite good. Its price point is higher by quite a bit than the Chaos.
So the reason for this is because of this special rule, Abyssal Cloak. No, sorry, next one, Enfeebling Cold. When you're in base contact with the model, enemy models suffer -1 of their strength. Guess what? Every infantry unit does now. They fight in 2 ranks, so then the models behind them don't have that problem, right? So that doesn't work anymore.
Well, doesn't work as well.
So in theory, if you're toughness 6 and you lower enemy strength by 1, you can seriously make yourself hard to get hurt, right? But if it's only
to your
base
point,
contact,
if the rule was just while this unit is in base contact with an enemy unit, the enemy unit suffers -1 to its strength, that would be a fantastic combo rule with other things, but that's not what it says.
Right. Also, this doesn't prevent you from getting murdered by dragons who are strength 7 to start with, so going down to 6 is only a 4 up to wound, so that's not going to help you enough.
Depends on the dragon.
Well,
not
so
all
keep in mind,
dragons are strength
this thing
7.
doesn't have a ward or regen save. So the thing that the Giant's Chaos Spawn has is it's unbreakable, and it has a regen save, so it just basically has 33%
make it
more.
Nurgle.
Yeah, which I think everyone is constantly doing on literally all of them.
It's either Nurgle or Khorne. So
Right.
either it's Killing Blow or Regen, because
you got a choice. The Merwyrm only has 1 stat line, right?
I'm not going to argue. The Merwyrm, I love the model. I want to see him on the table. Is this guy point for point equal to the Giant Chaos Spawn? No, he's not.
So the Abyssal Cloak makes you have a -2 penalty to hit when firing at long range rather than 1, but only long range, which is kind of a lot of hoops to jump through, and I didn't remember that this existed. That's interesting.
Well, when have you seen the Merwyrm on the table?
I haven't.
I've seen people buy the model. I've seen people paint it. And they look super cool. I haven't seen it hit the table.
So if your whole special, and by the way, you can bring Merwyrms if you just have a unit of Lathered Seaguard in your list. You can play a Grand Army list with a Merwyrm still, if you want.
So it's kind of like what they did with the Troll Hag, right? If you take a unit of trolls, you can take a Troll Hag in your Grand Army, which I do see that because the Troll Hag is fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't see this happening with the Merwyrm.
So the new magic items they gave, there aren't that many standouts. I mean, I'm such a sucker for things like the Woodsman's Axe, which is strength +3, AP 4. So again, 1 higher strength than the regular, like Chracian Greatblade. 1 higher AP than the regular Chracian Greatblade. AP 4? Okay. This thing also has Monster Slayer. Okay. It's 90 points. Mike, how many points do I have to spend on items? 100.
100 typically.
Yes. Did we somehow skip the part where the Chracian Warhost gives me 25 extra points to spend on every character's items? No, we didn't.
I don't recall reading that. No.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So
we don't have that. So that means if you buy this, you're literally naked.
Well, you're not naked. You still have your heavy armor.
Right.
But you're not taking it. But yes, to your point, it's an all-in magic item combo.
Yeah, well, I did try this once on a Star Dragon guy with a Charm Shield. Oh boy, that was really fun, but really scary because you're just like, I am tissue paper.
Well, you
But
are
you can,
playing an elf. That kind of goes with the territory.
yeah, if you want to make your dragon a glass cannon, put this on that guy. That's freaking scary and fun. Um, Because, by the way, this is also strikes last and requires 2 hands, so you're making yourself vulnerable to being hit before you go, and you're also making yourself vulnerable to you don't have your shield. So you have 2 other downsides as well, besides the fact that you have the opportunity cost of the points cost. I'll also point out that Black Maul is better than this item and costs less. Okay, we have the Bow of the Seafarer. So this comes up a lot. It's a 30-inch bow with the strength 5 AP 3 on the arrow that you're firing, which is basically like a bolt thrower, and it's also wounds D3, and it has yeah, it has the through and through like a bolt thrower. So you can give a character the bolt thrower. Almost always, this is put on the Sister of Avalorn champion. So the Sister of Avalorn champion can fire like a bolt thrower, which makes taking regular bolt throwers. Again, why would you take regular bolt throwers when the Sister of Avalorn champion buying this item is basically a better bolt thrower, right? Fair enough. Starlance, I buy this a lot. So now it's strength plus 3, AP 4, right, which is better than a lance in multiple ways. But you know, you can only use it when you charge. It's the same thing as a regular old lance. It's just that it has better strength than AP, which is cool. And it is kind of expensive, but it is also like a very much a theme item around Calidor. So if you want to be Imric and you want to roleplay as that guy, because I do, you take this item. This is also a really great item to put on your Blood of Calidor Archmage with Doppelganger that you're trying to make happen. At the very least, with High Elves, you get to reroll that casting. So it might be hard to cast because of reroll it, though. So fair enough. Okay. No one plays it. No one plays it. I mean, everyone has an item now that gives a unit -1 to hit in the shooting phase. So now when I see items like that, I'm like, cool, everyone has that. So it's whatever, right? Because then everyone can buy the -1 to hit in shooting phase item if they want to. For a while, I really liked Circlet of Atrazar, which gives you +1 wound and +1 toughness. But you have to be infantry or cavalry. So you get to make your guy toughness 4. But 55 points is a lot of points. So, okay. Oh god. How many different high elf? I'm building a list threads where someone's trying to put Banner of Resilience on their unit. So Banner of Resilience, Mike, for 80 points, you can give the unit carrying it +1 toughness.
No thanks.
Every unit that gets this is toughness 3 to start with.
No thanks.
And like the biggest high elf unit you're ever going to have is what, like 25 guys? So it's still like 4 points per model to get this upgrade. Oh, and it has to go on a BSB, so it's got to be on your BSB now.
I'd rather have another unit.
Yes, fair enough. Banner of Lothern. Wow, is this embarrassing. For 55 points, so it cannot go on the Seaguard unit themselves. It has to go on your like BSB in the Seaguard unit. You get, when you're equipped with thrusting spears, half of the models in the 3rd rank, or the rank directly behind the normal one making supporting attacks, can make supporting attacks as well. So 2 ranks of regular guys fight now with Press of Battle, a 3rd rank with thrusting spears. This 55-point banner gets you half of a 4th rank of strength 3 attacks.
Strength 3, no armor piercing attacks.
Well, if it's 170.5 point a Shy of S is in the unit, they're AP 1, I guess.
That helps, but still 55 points for how many more attacks? I'd rather just have more models.
Probably 3 or 4.
That come with more wounds.
Yes,
right?
True. You can also just make yourself wider, because remember, you're probably drilled, so make yourself
It doesn't
wider.
make sense.
Yeah. Banner of Balance, I like this one. For 25 points, no one can reroll to hit against this unit or to wound against you. But the unit cannot be reroll to hit or wound either. So you nullify any rerolls against you. That is an incredibly unique ability, and when you play in a game where actually not that many people have rerolls, but if they do, it can be a big deal. Like especially Dark Elves have hatred versus you, so that's rerolls to hit right there. Beastmen have rerolls to ones to hit. They can turn that off, or rerolls ones to wound for being near the Hearthstone. Turn that off too. That could be nice. All you gotta do is just find a unit that doesn't start with rerolls and give them that banner. That's fine.
Yep.
Banner of Competence for 20 points. You don't suffer the -1 to hit when making stand and shoot. If you're doing the stand and shoot, you're about to be in combat. So I think the only unit that ever buys this is Lothern Seaguard. because otherwise you really don't want to be in combat in the first place.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Ring of Fury was the thing that we saw tons of for a while. It got FAQ to be power level 1 instead of 2 for Hammerhand, which kind of makes it very okay. And again, most people were putting these on your Silverhelm champion who, yeah, I don't think Silverhelms are worth it, even if you can buy Hammerhand. Gem of Courage, on the other hand, I really like this item. It's just that it's kind of funny. It gives single use when you make a break test. You get to roll an extra d6 and discard the highest number. This is an item that you can only buy on an army where every unit in the army has stubborn. Now, what's amazing though, Mike, is you can buy this on your dragon guy. So you can buy this so that when he's like double outnumbered and has to take a leadership 6 or lower, or he breaks and flees and gets killed, you buy this, and now he potentially doesn't run away.
Yep, that could come into play.
I think for 15 points, that's great.
For 15 points, it's definitely worth considering.
Okay, and a bunch of arcane items I've never heard of. Fantastic. That was the end of the book. Great. So we've got a couple of things in here. I think that the Chracian Warhost is the most interesting part, but you can already see that there's so many really situational or things where it's like, cool, I'll have 3 extra strength, 3 attacks because of that banner. Oh, no. Or I can make a single unit toughness 4. So? In fact, Mike, I've seen some people take a BSB on a Phoenix so that he's toughness 6, right? And then they take that spend 80 points to make the Phoenix toughness 7. So?
It's a lot of points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think both lists are home runs on themes, on flavor, on narrative. I think they're very successful there. They're great for modeling opportunities. I definitely love seeing a thematic list hit the table. But yes, in terms of actual competitive rules, the Chracian list has some worthwhile, fun lists to put together. But with the Sea Guard list, you're probably just better with the Grand Army. And if you want to incorporate a Merwyrm for fun, because the model is super cool and it's just really cool to have it in your list. And that's, you know what, that's reason enough to have it because it's awesome. But in terms of
I think the main difference,
the list
Mike,
itself is just too limited.
Yeah, the Sea Guard list I think has Lothern Skycutters are special choices instead of rare. But I think that the Grand Army lets you have a Skycutter in special if you have like a certain other limit, like 0 to 1 or something. So it doesn't really affect it that much.
Yeah, unless you just like, hey, I want to take like 8 Skycutters or something, which don't do that. But yeah, so I think one of the lists is I give it a good grade, passing grade. The Chracian list is an interesting, compelling list, but the Sea Guard list doesn't quite cut the mustard.
Sure. Okay. Well, we covered man, we went for a really long time. I did not think the Arcane Journal was going to take that long, but if you've watched all of this and you really like our content, you can obviously just like the video and subscribe and, stay tuned for when we cover your favorite faction, right?
All right. Stay legendary.